Magic's going on in here.
This is where the magic happens.
And it is. It really is, though. A lot of things are going on, though, right?
Yes.
Last night were the Grammys, so we're definitely going to be talking about that.
Uh-huh.
Today's the anniversary, 3-year anniversary of the Yemeni revolution. Also, the beginning of the Arab Spring, so we're definitely going to talk about that and the ramifications.
Mm-hmm.
Greg, are we going to talk about anything else?
Sure.
Liv actually is going to have a fun little game for us that she is going to be introducing.
Fun little game to debut today.
Exactly. So we also have that.
At 10:30.
And we have a lot of other things, too, that are just...
Sharon Robinson.
Yes, that's it. We're going to go talk about her coming onto campus, the first WPI event of 2014. So that'll be interesting and fun and what have you.
Etc.
Yes.
I think first you wanted to get into the anniversary of the Arab Spring.
Yes. So today it was actually funny because we, whenever we get ready for the radio, the show, we want to kind of see if there's anything significant that has happened on the date of the show. That something we want to maybe highlight or what have you. And today, actually, January 27th, 2011, 3 years ago, was the official day that followed the initial stages of the Tunisian Revolution and occurred simultaneously with the Egyptian Revolution of 2011. That it was the official, quote-unquote, I guess what historians will call the beginning of the Arab Spring. What ended up occurring in Yemen was in the early stages, protests were occurring in the country, initially against unemployment, economic conditions, and corruption, as well as against the government's proposal to modify Yemen's constitution. Protesters demanded then escalated to calls for the Yemeni president Ali Abdullah Saleh to resign. Mass defections from the military occurred, as well as from Saleh's government, effectively rendering calls for much of the government outside of government control, and protesters vowed to defy its authority. So it's a very interesting, seminal moment, because what you are seeing, especially with the Arab Spring, is countries who have pretty much been occupied or have been colonized or really were some of the few last modern day colonies, and countries that are, I would say, kind of some of the most far behind, finally starting to revolt against their governments, against kind of the injustice and intolerance, and pretty much when we look at kind of third world countries and where the third world lies, there's really two major regions. It's Africa and it's the Middle East. These are still predominantly some of the poor areas of the world, and with the Yemeni revolution and with the Egyptian revolutions occurring right after the Tunisian revolution, and then some would even argue, kind of all of this started maybe bubbling over with the Iranian revolution in 2009, or not the revolution, but the Green movement happening a few years beforehand. All of this somewhat kind of, it was indicative of a pattern which was kind of slowly bubbling over many, many years. A lot of people would say that it has something to do with, it was like, oh, well, it's, globalization at work, and these countries are finally coming to, finally realizing, the concepts of democracy and whatnot. And others would argue that it's the, kind of the concepts of outside interference, and these citizens have now wanted to kind of have their own determinism. And, when whatever the cause is, or whatever has led to kind of these revolutions occurring in the area, it's not necessarily very well known. I think it'll take many years to finally understand what has truly led this happening to happen in the region. And to be frank, we don't necessarily know what revolution ultimately leads to. It doesn't necessarily always lead to democracy, as we've seen in '79 with Iran and many other countries.
Have any of these cases that we're talking about achieved democracy yet?
Unfortunately, no, in the sense that either they are so holistically weak, like in Tunisia, where they're like still trying to figure out what they're doing and like still having elections and still like fixing themselves, so like how Tunisia's working and how Yemen is kind of going, or they're still enthralled in constant violence, as we see in Syria and Egypt. And so at the moment, it's very much not where some people would want it to be. But to be frank, the United States took many years in their own American Revolution to achieve full independence and whatnot. So it's not unheard of, but I think especially in the modern day, when it takes the United States Army a handful of weeks to take over Afghanistan, and then Iraq, I think people are like, well, why is it taking so long for just take over the government, and isn't that simple? You just get guns but no, it's a long drawn out process. And I think also the difficulty comes because people want that people in the Western world don't necessarily understand kind of how revolutions work and how utterly complex it gets, especially in the Middle East when it comes to the cross section of politics and religion, in the sense that the rebels, there is no singular rebel group that there was necessarily in like Latin America when it was the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, or there was Che Guevara and Fidel Castro in Cuba. In the Middle East, when there are rebels, there are communists, there are Islamists, strict Islamists, and then within the Islamists there are Sunnis, Shia, Kurds, Wahhabi, which are Al-Qaeda, devout, kind of like that very, very, very devout kind of Sunni sect. There are so many different parts and so many different types of people there within these countries that are considered rebels. It makes it extremely difficult for even the United States to give support to rebels, because it can very easily turn into another Russia, Afghanistan, 1980 type of thing, where we did Charlie Wilson's War, just a slight plug, does this masterfully, because it kind of explains the situation where we gave all this training and weapons to Al-Qaeda and ultimately, Afghanistan and Osama bin Laden to get rid of the Russians during, when they came and invaded Afghanistan. And yet we never came back and helped redevelop the area or rebuild the schools or anything. And eventually the same weapons that we had given them and the same training were used against us 20 years later. So it's very difficult to kind of have a hands-on approach in these countries, because your ally, your begrudged ally at the moment, can very easily turn into your enemy in a few years. So it's still a very tumultuous time in the area, but it's still very historic to talk about, because it is one of the first times in recent memory, especially after the initial fall of communism and all the, color revolutions in Europe that happened after the fall, that we are seeing such a mass movement and mass upheaval of governments in one region.
And part of what we talked about with Syria is that in the process of these rebels trying to overthrow the government, there are many different groups that are working together at that stage, that once that upheaval occurs, they're suddenly not together anymore. Suddenly they're each vying for their own group to obtain power.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think the best way to describe it are like the cartels in Colombia. I took a wonderful class with Dexter Boniface over intercession, the U.S. drug war in Latin America. And one of the great ways to describe it is as if you have like a Pablo Escobar figure. He's like the current dictator, for instance. No, not obviously now, but you can compare him to a current dictator, or you can compare him to a Gaddafi. And, he is a horrible individual, not benefiting, he's just very vile, cruel, what have you. You take him out of the picture, and it kind of becomes a brawl between all the other subgroups to try and vie for that position, because now it's open and the violence intensifies so much more. And it kind of looks at it where, he was an SOB, but he was ours. It became like at least he kept the order. At least he was able to make sure everything was okay. And at least, yeah, he was corrupt and horrible, but he had a way of controlling things. Now, when it's like a free for all and that person is gone, there are no rules in love and war, and that becomes something that it's like, well, once you kick the anthill, all the ants are going to come out scurrying, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So, I think that at the moment now, it's such a huge transition for most of these countries and most of these areas, and there's still so much unknown. I think that the initial response is, oh, well, then we need to get involved. We might as well do it ourselves. We might as well go in. And I think that the hardest thing is to resist that temptation as Americans and as people of the Western world. I think that, I guess, as a way to kind of end things off is, as much as we believe we would be the best at employing democracy and exporting democracy, I think that as difficult as it is to kind of stand by and watch, we can only give passive support unless things become truly horrible. As in, it was, in the case in Syria when things really started escalating, we kind of had to make a serious decision. But at the end of the day, no government in the Middle East that has any even is even tacitly seen as having been propped up by the United States government is automatically not going to be respected, because it's going to be seen as, oh, this is an imperialistic throw, and this is just the United States meddling again, like it did in Iran, like it did in Guatemala, like it did in all over the world. So I have hope, as all you really can do, and we'll see what happens in the future. But that's why I wanted to mark today, because I felt it was a very important day.
Mm-hmm. And still today in the news out of Cairo, just still protesting, still violence in which the military government is kind of squelching opposition, and still another revolution is sought there by the people. And so as that news continues, we will be covering it. And so what do you have next? You had you watched the Grammys.
I actually did check out a little bit of the Grammys. I didn't see the whole thing. I know Liv saw the whole thing.
Yes, I did.
And there were a lot of interesting things about it, and I saw a lot of interesting things online. Mm-hmm. So,
what are these things of interest?
I'll let Liv explain them. Then I have actually my own opinion. So go ahead.
All right. Okay. So before they gave out a couple of words before before the show, and two of the big contenders for Best Rap Album were Malcolm Moore and Ryan Lewis for The Heist, and Kendrick Lamar for his both are well praised, but Kendrick Lamar for his second album, Good Kid, Mad City. And before the show started, Malcolm Moore won. So there was talk of whether Malcolm Moore was going to win Best New Artist against the likes of Kendrick Lamar. Lorde was nominated as well, and Malcolm Moore won again. And so that caused a little bit of a frenzy.
On the lines.
Yeah,
on
just
the lines.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, he wasn't necessarily my choice.
Is he new? I don't think he's new. He's had albums.
Well, both have been around for a while, but because of like Grammy cutoffs and stuff like that, and just
So
growing
weird.
into popularity.
Okay.
So in the eyes of the Grammys, they're new.
I know. Like Alicia Keys won for her album Girl on Fire, and that's been around for years. Like at this point, like it's like Grammys have a weird cutoff system, and like it's I don't know. One of the big things though was really interesting about that, because I was reading all about it. Was a lot of people were upset that he won, and kind of looked at it as another issue of white privilege, in the sense that and Eminem has talked about it at great length, and he's never hit about it, is that white privilege that because I'm white, even though I'm singing about rap, even if I'm in the hip hop game, in the rap game, I'm going to be getting more airtime than many other people, African Americans. That's just it stinks, and but it is the way it is. And Macklemore, even to his credit, he even wrote a song about it, which was really interesting. It's from back in the day, but it kind of makes you examine kind of the state of music, and especially there are many of those in the hip hop community who feel like rap is going to be done in like rock was, and reappropriated and recultured by white people. And I think it's very interesting to see. So I don't know what, because I saw on Facebook a few other comments and whatnot, and I even saw an article that was linked that I read. So I would love to know your opinion on it, and what do you think? Do you think it's just the Grammys not getting it right, or is this indicative of a more serious problem that's occurring in the hip hop community, especially recently with the upsurgence, not just Macklemore, but many other white rappers?
Yeah, because there's a lot right now. There,
like
there's
Mac Miller
and Hoodie Allen, and yeah. So I don't. I think it's a mix of both. I just thought, I think, Macklemore is a very talented person. I would not take that away from him at all. But at the same time, though, I think. In terms of artistry and lyrically, I would go. I'm more of a Kendrick. I'm a Kendrick Lamar fan. I'll just out it right now. I'm a Kendrick Lamar fan. So seeing him lose last night was just not. It was not a highlight. I think with hip hop in general, I think hip hop, has always slightly been the underdog and like trying to, be progressive in a way. So in a sense, to see more white artists come about, and also to see them, kind of as the new underdog of the genre, I'm not surprised that it's happening. I wouldn't say that. I don't think a lot of people have been saying, and for many reasons, not just because of this. There's been a lot of talk in the last decade of hip hop is dead and rap is dead, and
Nas famously made a album about that.
Definitely. And I don't think hip hop is dead. I just think the focus might be a little off. I think, and this is just for anybody in hip-hop right now, regardless of race, it needs to be more about the story and the art, and to see any kind of artist come in and kind of, take over something that we thought belonged to somebody else. Because Kendrick Lamar had I think Kendrick Lamar's album, his second album, Good Kid, Mad City, was a concept album, and he just took this story and told it so beautifully. And I haven't really listened to Malcolm Moore's album, so again, I'm not going to disrespect him in any kind of way, but I don't necessarily see the appeal.
Here's what I actually did, and I'll give you some time if you want to go on Wikipedia. I searched the Grammy Award for Best Rap Solo Performance. I searched all
It's
the
gone to
nominees.
Eminem in the last couple of years, right?
Well, yeah, but the biggest thing is I was looking at the performances and I was looking at the awards. I was comparing who won and who was nominated. And then I ended up finding out something interesting, which is something that I believe is more indicative of the issue, which is not necessarily race. And I'm just going to list off a few examples. In 1995, when it was Coolio's Fantastic Voyage, Craig Mack's Flavor in Your Ear, Snoop Doggy Dogg's Gin and Juice, and Warren G's This Is DJ, out of those four all got nominated, but what won was Queen Latifah's UNITY. Okay. The year after that, when it was Notorious B.I.G.'s Big Papa, Tupac's Dear Mama, Skilo's I Wish, and Busta Rhymes' Woo-Ha Gotcha.
Stacked.
All in the
That's a stacked group right there.
Who wins?
Two classics.
Coolio's Gangsta's Paradise. That's the one who wins. And then finally,
I feel
I'm not following.
I'm
I'm
going to get to the point. I'm going to get to the point. Trust me.
Because I think I've come with a good opinion.
And then in 98 and 99, both times Will Smith wins with Men in Black and Getting Jiggy with it, as opposed to songs that are like Notorious B.I.G.'s Hypnotized.
The Grammys, they're not getting it right. I'm sorry, they're just not.
So for me, so the way I look at it is
I think they're going with the
they go for the
pop.
safe.
Yeah, they go with
not even the
safe.
pop. They go for the safe choice.
So Malcolm right now is
it's
the
not
safe
because he's
choice.
white. It's because he's safe.
Well, I think he might be safe because he's white, though.
But that's the thing. Was it the chicken and the egg, or the egg or the chicken?
It's both. It's both.
It's both. I'm not going to even try and separate the two. But what I am going to say is I don't want to say it's all indicative of race. I think it's just the Grammys like to choose the safe pop song. I mean, you know, whether it's Dr. Dre's "Let Me Ride" getting it over Sir Mix-a-Lot, or whether it's also Sir Mix-a-Lot wasn't that good, but like if you look through the differences between who they choose versus who they are nominated with, you know, they are nominated in really great categories with very interesting and diverse artists within the rap community, but the songs that they're with, they're obviously songs that either deserve it more or are a little bit more risque. They don't have that. They don't sound pretty. So they could even be a little dirty, but they don't sound pretty. You know. So I feel like that's the reason why, you know, Will Smith wins it back to back for both Men in Black and Getting Jiggy with It, but Notorious B.I.G., Missy Elliott, LL Cool J, Busta Rhymes, Wyclef, and Lauryn Hill, and
oh my God,
Jay-Z,
and that album is a classic.
all of them. Did you realize that Getting Jiggy with It got the Grammy in the same year that Jay-Z was nominated for Hard Knock Life? So that's the thing.
Grammys don't have it.
The Grammys don't get it, and I think it's more so. I mean, we can definitely talk about the race and white privilege aspect, but I really just think it's Grammy voters being like, let's go with the safe choice, because if we're going to promote. Because if the Grammys are something that it is a brand in and of itself, people, they buy the albums, they buy the, you know, like the, you know how the Grammys do that, and you know they have to have, you know, they have to be picked up by CBS every single year, you know, like they are a business in and of themselves, and they promote themselves. I think that it's much harder to go to your more affluent, potentially Caucasian sponsors and go, well, you just gave a Grammy to a song that was all about smacking women and doing other really illegal and, in our cases, horrible things. No matter how true it is, no matter how whatever it is or whatever.
Where'd that come from?
That's the thing, and that's the thing. That's what bothers me. It's like Kendrick Lamar's album isn't necessarily that. I mean, that's definitely an aspect of hip hop, but I think with Kendrick Lamar's album, the album is called Good Kid, Mad City, and the whole thing is about him as a, you know, growing up as a kid and him having to choose. He's from Compton, so it's a choice between, you know, getting caught up in all of this gang life or doing what he loves and trying to be successful at it. And obviously he chose the latter because he performed last night and it was so great. But not all of hip hop is like that, and I think that's a stereotype that needs to be squashed. And I think if people would just listen and pay attention and not to just like choose the safe choice, I think the Grammys would have a better shot at getting it right every year. I mean, the rap category has come a long way, because it didn't even become a category until '96. I was reading, and then all of these great albums came out before then, and it's just now, it's fairly new. And also they don't really show. They don't even really show the winners of these awards either on television. And who were the only two rappers on the stage last night?
Kendrick
and Jay-Z, but Jay-Z was with Beyonce,
which was
so that's,
obviously
again somewhat a safe choice. I mean, it's still a risque song, but it's the safe choice.
And I think the two categories that get it the worst, it's one, it's rap, and then it's also, people have made arguments about it, it's rock. And I mean, like more like rock today, where it's like, well, if you see the winners now, like I believe like one of them was like Led Zeppelin or whatever, and it was nominated with a few other like older artists, and I'm like, well, what? Wait, what? Like, I mean, there's
as a new album.
Not like necessarily a new album. It was like one of those like complete like box sets or whatever that like competed or whatever. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, actually, it is its own category.
It is its own category. Like it has its own category, and I'm just like,
best box set goes to.
Yeah, but it's like, are you saying like, do we really not have enough rock artists in today's modern era to
put together some boxes?
To put some boxes.
And the award for best box builder goes to
Johnny in accounting. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for building all those boxes for the Grammys. So I think yes. So I think that yes, it is politics. It is probably has there's some shady stuff going on. But I also think just a lot of the Grammy voters just don't.
They don't get it. They don't know. I wonder what the demographic of the Grammys. Like what? Like
they probably all need suntan lotion because they burn easily. And that's all I'm gonna say about that.
I'm sorry for anybody.
But yes, but besides that, there were some actually really amazing, really fun aspects to the show. I did really like Macklemore's performance of "Same Love" because of the whole aspect of Queen Latifah just magically coming out there and officiating 33 weddings, like in the middle of the song,
What?
like. Yeah, in the middle of the song, I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing.
What happens during like the singing of "Same Love" is Queen Latifah, who had, I guess, announced it. I didn't see that part. I just saw the little snippet. She kind of comes out in the middle of the song, and then the camera pans to like all these couples, gay and straight, like they're all just standing there, like they're like posing because they're about to get married. Because what ends up happening, Queen Latifah's like, we're gathered here today to kind of like celebrate the song and love, and that's why we've gotten these couples together, and now I would like you guys to switch rings. And what I assume, I don't know if it could potentially be ceremonial, but they weren't acting ceremonial. She was looking like she was actually officiating, so she may have had credentials. But yeah, she literally in the middle of the song, they marry like 33 people. Like it's pretty legit. Like it's pretty cool, and it's very awe-inspiring. And then Madonna walks out. She starts singing "Open Your Heart." And then they get into this like little then they start both singing. They end up singing the end of "Same Love," but it's like very cool and it's very poignant. It's like love, and then it's like, and then you go like, and then I look at it at like, this would have never happened 10 years ago. This would have never been a thing. And now it's like, we're society's so much more okay with it today. Gay marriage and LGBT rights are so much more active, and I feel like in that moment it kind of really look at the cross-section of where you are as a society and the importance of pop culture as a way of social movement, what Will and Grace has done, what music has done, what all these little facets have done over the decades, not even just over the last 10 years, but, little things have slowly etched against the block of ignorance and oppression. And it's kind of got to the point where it's so being anti-LGBT or you can have differing opinions on marriage, but just being against gay people or being against that type of ignorance and prejudice is so taboo now. Like that's becoming the taboo thing, and that is something that is so beautiful. I think like that moment kind of highlighted that.
Yeah, 10 years ago was just the big getting jiggy with it finale.
Oh God.
God, Greg. But yeah, that was really cool.
The safe choice.
But that was really cool. I mean, but also look, like Lorde won for best It was like song, I believe,
For Royals.
for Royals. And then Daft Punk won a bunch of awards. Like they won. I want to say Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr received Lifetime Achievement Awards, and they both played
For what?
for this thing
Go on.
called the
I don't-
Beatles.
Oh.
I've never
I'll
heard
catch
of it,
up.
What is
but
that?
I don't like bugs.
I don't know.
But Ringo Starr did his quote photograph with musicians, including Peter Frampton and Kenny Aronoff, and McCartney did his new song Queenie Eye with a group that included obviously Ringo. So yeah, so it's very cool. And I mean, those are the big awards. And then it's now still off to the races. We still have a few more awards ceremonies coming. Obviously, the Oscars are going to be fun, and it's all.
Who knows?
it's all-
The
That's the last
the
big one
daytime
now, right?
Emmys.
Yeah.
Yeah, the daytime Emmys.
the daytime Emmys. Oh my
Those
God.
are in September though.
Yeah, and
Or,
the,
like,
and,
sometime in
and the
the
Tonys are like over the summer as well,
Yes.
right? So yeah,
That's always a good show.
The
If you guys
Anthonys?
don't watch the any award show, you should watch the Tonys. Those are always good.
Like a game to play.
Mm-hmm.
We should have like a little like theme.
yeah.
for it.
Liv, you got a game for us? What?
Yes.
What?
Yes, College or Cray.
So let's explain what College or Cray is about.
Okay, it's somewhat like Two Truths and a Lie, and I'm going to tell name off three current college stories, and Amir and Greg have to choose which ones are true and which one is false.
Oh snap!
Yes.
So you ready, Greg? It's
I'm
gonna be
ready.
Fun. I know you've been a little removed from college, living the college life. but
Yeah.
we'll see.
I don't know what the kids are up to these days.
They're still playing with their Legos and whatnot.
That's right.
Well, apparently
Building boxes.
at the Cornell hangout spot, Viva Taqueria, they've been playing with fire because a fire broke out, unfortunately, at the Mexican restaurant, which has been a staple there. Why are you laughing? This could have been bad.
Okay, I'm
Today-
sorry.
He is laughing. I just want everybody
This
to
could
know.
have been
just think of, like,
PRs.
I'm just thinking of like the
easy.
funny names they could have thought of, like, today we have flaming empanadas, and literally the empanadas are flaming now, like.
Yes,
they're on fire.
It happened in downtown Ithaca, away from the school, and they apparently it was started by a rogue, just throwing away cigarette. So see, kids, this is why at Rollins it's such a good thing that we have our smoking policies,
That nobody
because you don't
enforces.
want
Bring it back.
yeah you don't want like CSS to burn down. I mean, like.
No, I don't want CSS to burn down.
No,
because
like,
that's my home. But
Yeah, and it's like we wouldn't be able to have our Chipotle, like.
my faux
Faux
Sorry,
play.
we don't have license for that. We do not have license for that. I need to,
My bad.
I need to say we have faux
Chipotle.
Yeah.
My bad. Next, at the University of Missouri, students can now take a course on Jay-Z and Kanye.
Of course they can.
Yes. They can buy in the class they'd have to read Jay-Z's book Decoded, which was featured on Oprah show a couple years ago before it went off the air.
Okay.
And they would have to dissect their album Watch the Throne. So
Okay, that's interesting.
yeah, the professor started Andrew Holbrook started class in fall 2013. It was a hit, so they're bringing it back.
Nice. So what's the last one?
The last one comes out of the University of Nevada, and we all know it's been so cold recently.
It's been a vortex. if you
Yes,
will.
currently it is 16 degrees in Nevada, and at the University of Nevada, some of the students weren't able to get out of the library overnight because of such the cold temperatures. The building froze over and like on the handles, and it was hard for them to get out. So like they had to bring in people to like kind of hose down the water so they'd be able to get out of the building. It didn't take them that long, but it was kind of a I have to get to class. Boom. Nope, you can't.
Not today. Okay.
Nope.
So Greg, we got Cornell fire in the Mexican restaurant. We got Kanye and Jay-Z being taught at school
In Missouri.
in Missouri, and we got
Trapped students.
trapped students because of the cold. What are your thoughts? What are you leaning towards?
I'm leaning towards you picking first, but I
Wow.
would as much as I would want to take that course, and I think I could probably already test out of it because of my extensive knowledge in watching also the clip, or not clip, the epic YouTube video of Watch the Throne performing a certain song off their album 11 times in Paris. That alone, I think, gives me enough insight into Watch the Throne that I feel like I could exceed in that course, but I think that one is false.
So you wouldn't want to learn about derogatory term for African Americans in Paris?
Nah, I already know those terms because I've been living on the streets for 21 years, so that's the life I live.
No.
I would actually not be surprised because they tried teaching Ebonics in California back in the 90s.
But why?
So, I don't know. They thought it was cool. So I'm not surprised at anything anymore. Like, the people will just teach anything.
So they're all true.
So they're
You're
all
just
so
not
I think
surprised.
anything about, like, ooh, they were teaching Jay-Z or, they were teaching Ozzy Osbourne. Like, I'm not surprised because why not? They need kids to go to college. Nobody wants to go to college anymore. So, yeah, why not? I think that's true. I do not think that the handles froze over. I think that's the one that I'm like, yeah, it's cold, but I don't think it's gotten
16
that
degrees,
cold.
Amir.
I know 16 degrees is cold, but
It's below freezing,
I
Amir.
I think, no, zero's below freezing.
Celsius.
Negative. Okay, well, you say Celsius.
We're talking Fahrenheit. 32 is freezing.
This is America, Amir.
I want to go to London, as you can see, so I'm thinking London already. I'm thinking Celsius. Whatever the rationale, I don't think the last one's
Are you
right.
positive?
I'm going with
You
that
sure?
one.
Last choice? Last chance?
I'm on it. Get down on it. I'm on it.
All right. You actually can take a class in Jay-Z and Kanye at the University of Missouri.
I'm there.
I guess, Amir, you might be right.
Oh, what's up? We won't stop. I thought I told you that we won't stop. Sorry.
There's a lot of hip-hop influence in this room right now.
There really is. I'm sorry. I live that life. Sorry.
And I mean,
I'm part of the clan.
it wouldn't be the worst thing.
The Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh,
You
okay,
heard.
okay.
You heard.
Wouldn't be the worst thing to get frozen over in the library. Someone who, after a late night study session just decided to, put my head down in Fair Olin and woke up the next day ready to take that exam. So is that the worst thing? Spending the night in the
I
library?
don't think that's the worst thing that could happen. I think we're glossing over the more serious thing. Somebody's trying to burn down a Mexican restaurant in Cornell.
I don't think anybody was trying to. I just think somebody just had a cigarette and just threw it. Oh, no big deal.
And it just went into like a fajita, pan that they were bringing to the table, and it just
Oh God.
conflagration.
Oh boy. Guys.
All right, so
don't smoke.
either Amir or myself will be coming up with next week's
Yes.
game.
We will come up with next week's game. It'll be a hoot. I really like it.
Informative too.
Yeah, you learn about what to do and what not to do.
Two important things in this world.
Yes.
And this past week, as I don't know if either of you got a chance, or Amir, to see Sharon Robinson's Winter Park Institute event.
I did not see the actual event, but I saw the stone laying ceremony
Yeah.
because the video was online, and I thought
Yes.
that was super cool. Stone
was
laying
cool.
ceremony was awesome. Don't even live. You go to class.
I'm not here.
So, stones.
Yes, the stone. It was really sweet. One of our I don't remember the name of it, but the former president.
Thaddeus Seymour.
Thaddeus Seymour. Thank you so much. Yeah. Gave a really wonderful spiel about the importance of Sharon Robinson and kind of and her father and kind of the why we lay the stones the way we do, and I just thought it was very interesting to kind of see again, like, whenever we have these wonderful luminaries and scholars kind of come to our home, come to our campus, and just take the time out to explain it and talk about their personal experiences and history through their lens, especially with their perspective being so interesting. It's a great experience. So I'm glad that we have a ceremony such as the stone laying ceremony to kind of memorialize that in a way and kind of like showing that like this happened, and we're very excited for it. But as much as people like laying stones, you actually went to Sharon Robinson, correct?
Yes.
How
What
was
does that have to do with laying stones?
No, I was gonna
Laying groundwork.
I was going to.
Way to lay the groundwork on that segue, Amir.
I was gonna segue that over to yes, but how was the actual talk? What was the actual talk about, and kind of what were you feeling about this WPI event?
It was very good, and like the stone laying ceremony, the entire Rollins baseball team was there, and it was a packed house, Bush Auditorium. Many people standing in the back, so definitely a popular event. A lot of community members coming out there, and the age of whom varied wildly. There was a moment where someone asked a question to the audience on who had seen her father, Jackie Robinson, play, and I think at least 15 hands went up. Wow. So some of the older generation made an appearance, so very cool that there was a lot of this interest and a lot of appearance of some of these members who had seen her father play, obviously, and were impacted by him. And there were others, one girl who had received a scholarship from the foundation that Sharon now helps to run. She had talked a lot about the educational formation that her parents made so important in their family, and just that she, even as a youth, Sharon, was out in California and wanting to just become a nurse, wanted to just go to a trade school, wanted to just go to this X-ray tech school. And so her father came out, they visited the school, they got their books, this and that. As soon as her mom found out, she flew in and said, no, you're going to a four-year college. Mm-hmm. You are getting a proper education, a well-rounded education. And so very much throughout her life, she has many examples of how her parents promoted, bettering yourself in this way. And so there are now scholarships and different programs that she helps to coordinate that give not only kids in difficult situations, but children with disabilities, this ability to rise up and be able to take on some of their challenges. Mm-hmm. And it was great that her talk was centered around that in a lot of ways, and some of the lessons that she lives on with that were so present in her father's actions and in his strength. And unfortunately, her talk began with her expressing her heavy heart that her son had passed away in October to diabetes, which her father also passed of complications of when he really wasn't that old. I think it was in the 70s or 80s that he passed at, I think, 58 years old was the number.
It's a rough number.
And so she, was still able to get a lot of love from the group that was there and seemed to really enjoy and really give a heartfelt presentation, a heartfelt talk, and was able to express a lot of the pain but also the joy of what this legacy is that she's able to carry on. And so for that, it was probably my favorite event of this season so far.
Very cool. I guess my question is, what were some of the things that people wanted to ask, or because was it mainly about Jackie Robinson, or was there like a certain theme, or was there?
There were a few people who really wanted to ask about the movie 42 that they showed on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Actually, now I would love to hear what did she say about that?
She said that it was accurate. The movie was was well depicted. She and her mother were, brought in to meet the cast and were really in the process of filmmaking. And there were just like a couple nitpicky things. There's a moment where Jackie, what does he do? He proposes to his later wife, Rachel, over the phone when he finds out that he's going to be a member of the Brooklyn Dodgers, which Sharon says, well, it didn't really happen that way. But what the truth in there was that they were not going to get married until he had a job. And so something similar probably did take place where he said, now we can get married after he was hired.
Which we've talked about to some extent in the past, where like films will kind of dramatize things to make
of course
to work with the story or to kind of amp up the tension and whatnot, or the
right. But it was impressive to see that there actually was some truth to the moment in a way. And it probably would have been more impressive if it were presented realistically, and it was this moment of, they have the steadfastness and the integrity to say, well, we're not going to rush anything. We're going to wait until we can start a family to get married. And like that would have been a great message in the film, one that was true and not, fictionalized to purport it or anything. So she was able to talk about that. Cool moment. And then she also talked about her father's life after baseball, where he was one of the vice presidents of the coffee company Chock Full of Nuts. And that is very interesting because that's something that doesn't happen anymore. When you're a baseball player now, if you're the caliber of player that, in that strata that Jackie Robinson was, today you're making millions of dollars. You don't need a job for the rest of your life after you retire from baseball. But back then, you were making, above minimum wage, of course, but it was still just like a living wage to get you through your career. Baseball was a job. And then once someone retires, you do have to get another job. And over the summers, players were finding employment in different ways. Not over the summer. I'm thinking of football. Over the winter, they were doing other things.
For sure.
When the season wasn't going on. So that was another look into just the different sort of life that you had to have as a famous athlete back in the day. And the company actually let Jackie take time off to support Martin Luther King Jr. And there's photos of the Robinson family at the March on Washington, and with Martin Luther King having dinner at their home. And so they were very active in the civil rights movement. And that's something that, wasn't easy back then, still isn't the easiest thing for major athletes to support political movements. That's still a little bit of a taboo, and there's not a lot of crossover. Because like we're talking about with the Grammys, they want to seem as marketable as possible. They want endorsement deals and this and that. So currently, Chris Kluwe, you might have heard of, the former Vikings punter, has a case against the Vikings for discrimination because he is an outspoken gay rights activist, and there's allegations of his direct coach, the special teams coach of the team, like making a lot of hateful remarks, and that might have caused him to get cut from the team and sort of blackballed from the NFL. So that sort of thing is still going on now, where you can see the ramifications of supporting a political movement or a social movement, as it were. So it really gave context to not only the struggles that Jackie and his family went through, but also helping to apply it to today and see the ways in which his legacy still goes on and the ways in which his daughter is able to continue these philanthropic efforts that live on in his name.
It's really amazing. And I think that somebody like Jackie Robinson, his life kind of has so many. It's not just a story of triumph of over racism, but it's full of amazing values, like you mentioned, or with waiting for marriage until they're ready to have kids and are economically viable to do so, or kind of looking at one's convictions and kind of never backing down. I think that's things like that kind of show the importance that really everybody in and of themselves can do great things, even though they aren't necessarily powerful per se. He at the end of the day, Jackie Robinson was a baseball player, but the fact that he did it without having to sell out, or with the very steadfast conviction of who he was and what he wanted to be and how badly he wanted to play the game, no matter what, and always trying to live up to that barometer, is something that shows just how important it is to really hold on to what makes you who you are. And in doing that, that can bring about some of the greatest changes in and of themselves.
Right. Very well said. So
yes.
That about concludes our program. We have another minute.
We have another minute. Next week will be the 3rd. The Olympics will be starting, so definitely are going to have some discussions about Olympics, maybe the Winter Olympics, what we're excited about, any new news on Sochi, which is always a very, Russia's been under fire, not only for LGBT, but also potential safety concerns and what have you. So there's a lot going on there, And then we'll also be talking about February. A lot of things go on in February, a lot of events and whatnot.
Groundhog Day.
It'll also be after recruitment, male fraternity recruitment, and obviously sororities just finished up their recruitment and had their bid day yesterday. So we'll we'll talk about that, and we got a lot of things to talk about. There are a lot of wonderful, amazing, new stories always coming out the woodwork every single day.
Yeah, and students, if you're interested in writing or contributing to the Sandspur, you can go to our meeting tonight at 6 p.m. on the 5th floor of the Mills building.
We always need writers and photographers and people who are interested in editing or what have you. We always want new, young, bright minds to see if they can charge against the injustices of the world with one's pen.
Of course. And you can email any questions to sandspur@rollins.edu. All right, and with that, we'll see you next week.
Yes. My name's Amir Sadeh.
And I'm Greg Golden.
Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Bye.